Well, hello everyone. It's May 10th, 2024. This is Jerry Gagnon, and I am Michelle Titler, and we are from End Race-Based Law in Canada, because we have race laws in our Constitution. And Jerry is really going to begin to educate Canada and the world on what these race laws are and what they've done to us. But before I pass it on to him, I just want to tell everyone we are going to do live streams every Friday mornings at 11:11 West Coast Pacific time. Pacific time. And try to stick to that schedule as best we can so we can answer questions and just go live and have Canadians participate and even Americans, because these race laws are being used by the United Nations globalists all around the world in different ways. But here in Canada, it's with the natives, same with Australia and New Zealand. And Jerry's become quite an expert on this subject. And we would need to end race-based law and unity for Canada. And if you want our beautiful merch and more in all different color schemes, go to voxpopuli.store, voxpopuli.store. So I'm going to pass this on to Jerry. This is episode, I guess, 1 of whatever we're going to be doing. And it's complex, it's complicated, because these are in our court systems. It was a very ambiguous law with these race laws. It was inherent rights for one race, the natives. And what?
The date?
No, you go. Oh, the date today. I said the date. It's May 10th.
Oh, okay.
Okay, do it, Jerry. Bring us up to date. Tell everybody what's going on, and then we're going to start covering stories, because he does so many stories. Endracebasedlaw.ca, endracebasedlaw.com. Go there, check out his stories. Okay, Jerry, go ahead.
Okay, well, first of all, there are probably people who are going to watch this who don't have a clue who we are or what we're about. We have been at this for 11 years now. And it started because the Canadian Constitution is discriminatory. It segments people into categories like Francophone and Aboriginal, and rights are defined on the basis of those categories, as opposed to the modern progressive world where all citizens have equal rights, regardless of race, regardless of religion, regardless of sex. This has been, great progress has been made in the past century on this, except in Canada, where it has actually been moving in the other direction. Now, originally we started on Facebook, put up dozens and dozens of posts, had a group going, etc., and then Facebook decided to exterminate us. And
we ran a great page.
And so in 2015, we started a website, the .com website. The .com website is feature stories. Now, the feature stories are very lengthy. They are very lengthy because they are designed to answer any questions you may have as you read through the first part of the post. The stuff that comes afterwards is designed to answer what obvious questions might come up as you're perusing it. On the website, the comments are in red. The text itself is in black, but our comments are in red. And for people who thought the posts were just too lengthy, like they're just not people who read long things, I highlight key points in the post in blue. So for those of you who are skimmers and want to just get the gist of things, you can scroll down the page and the blue will jump out at you, along with our red.
He's talking to people like me.
Along with our red comments. Okay, so that's the design. Now, in 2016, we started up .ca, which is meant to be a daily news story. Like, it's not necessarily
There's so much
every
it's hard
day,
to keep up.
but there are so many news stories
so many
that we try to fill in the blanks.
Jerry.
We try to fill in the blanks with those stories as well, but we try to keep them a little shorter. They are news stories as opposed to what I'd call the issue stories, like residential schools, missing women, etc., right? Those are covered in the broader sense on .com in larger posts. Now, we had a series already 10 years ago that we started on positive stories about the residential schools. Facebook torched all of those. So we will...
There's so many positive stories about residential schools.
We will...
They literally would not be in the 21st century without them.
We will, in the very near future, be reposting those now on the websites and updating them first and then reposting them. So there will be a residential school series upcoming. Now, this issue is grounded in the discrimination in the Constitution, but its effects are far wider than that. You're probably familiar, most of you, with, say, the current mass graves controversy about the residential schools. And before that, the missing women investigation that was national. And in between was Trudeau putting the flag at half-mast for 4 months because of supposed graves that were never found. Before that was the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that went on and on and on. Before that, in the early 2000s, was RCAP. Again,
What's RCAP?
RCAP was another government, much like the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, but it was...
Sorry, I missed that one.
Yeah, a lot of people did. Okay, so there are literally hundreds of posts we've done, and that's because there are so many of these topics to cover. And we do cover historical stuff as well. We cover violence before the white man came amongst the tribes. We also cover the dysfunction on the Aboriginal reserves and the fact that most of those reserve people are unhappy with their leadership, unhappy,
Their kingdoms, communism.
basically unhappy with race-based law and the way it is implemented and practiced by our governments. They're not happy about it either. So when we first were on Facebook, we were attacked for being white racists. Okay. Now, for starters, I have been asking forever and ever and ever for somebody to provide me a racial color chart, so I can
What is
see
white?
I can see where I fit on the categories,
Yeah.
and anybody else can too. Now, apparently there isn't one, so I'm not sure where all of these race color categories are coming from,
Yeah.
and how people decide, especially how our government decides who fits in one and who fits in the
One
other.
day Jerry said we're varying degrees of beige, and I laughed so hard that I went and made my Beige Power logo that's on my website. I just think it's the most hilarious thing. He's Beige Power. We're all varying degrees of beige. We are, actually. And then I went and looked up all the makeup for women, and that says it all. Maybelline knows exactly the varying degrees of beige we are because they create facial makeup for us. So I went and got all that makeup, and that's how I created my logo with all of the makeup that Maybelline makes and L'Oreal and all of them. So don't lie to us. There's no white.
So for starters, those of you who are new to this issue might want to check out the archives in our websites. They're all tagged, so you can look under a tag heading if it's something you have particular interest in or want to learn about. And of course, we're always open to be contacted for questions of any kind.
There's a phone number. There's a Fongo phone number. There's NRace-based law petition at Gmail. Jerry for Canada at Gmail. Jerry for Canada at Proton Mail.
Okay, don't overdo it.
Michelle for Canada at Gmail and Michelle for Canada at Proton Mail. I'll put it in all of the descriptions.
So there are many ways to get a hold of us if you wish to discuss these things, as opposed to call us racists. Now, what I was
Yeah, we love a good fight. We love a good fight.
what I was explaining was on Facebook we were attacked by literally hundreds and hundreds of Aboriginal industry activists, as I refer to them. Some of them are young Aboriginals. Some of them are academics who are living off of this Aboriginal industry.
Lawyers and lobbyists too. It's big,
Exactly.
big industry. Big industry.
And so I would just like to make it clear that we're not anti-Aboriginal in any sense. Matter of fact, it's quite the opposite.
Well, this doesn't say end natives.
No.
It says end race-based law.
No,
And
Aboriginals,
unity for Canada.
to be fair, Aboriginals have never been granted full individual legal rights that the rest of Canadians have. They are treated in the original BNA Act as wards of the state. Now, wards of the state are people incapable of taking care of themselves or children. Okay, that's wards of the state. Now, the fact that that's in our Constitution, I agree with Aboriginals that that is racist. That is disgusting. It makes us look awful on the world stage for anybody who actually cares to look. Okay, so for starters, on our end of things, there's work to be done, particularly with the Constitution.
End race-based law.
And it's
Set them free.
it's up to us to undo this mess once and for all. Now, the Aboriginal industry is opposed to this. This is the irony.
Yeah.
So we're preaching equal rights for everyone,
Yeah.
and we're racist because of that. Because the Aboriginal industry preaches Aboriginal privilege.
Yep.
Okay, but
Supremacy.
the problem with
Native
that
supremacy.
is it's a two-headed coin, a two-sided coin, okay? Yeah, okay, so then there's positive rights you get for being an Aboriginal, and there's negative rights that come along, which is what they complain about
And
all
being
of the
separated
time.
from everybody else, it's like you're the only people who are doing this. All the rest of us from around the world, we can all make it work except you.
Reserves are segregated communities. People understand this. That's South Africa had
Yeah.
segregated communities, and they were condemned on the world stage for that. Now, of course, they did lots more too, but the point being, segregated, racially segregated communities done as government policy is called systemic racism. Trudeau loves to talk about the rest of us and Canada's systemic racism. He is governing the systemic racism. He is in control of the established systemic racism and hasn't made a single move to undo it. A matter of fact, all of his moves have been to expand the process. There are new treaties being written. The government, the Canadians should be aware of this.
Honor the treaties.
Canadians should be aware of this as taxpayers. There is a post on the .ca site about this from last week or so, 10 days ago or so. And it's that the federal government now owes approximately $54 billion in payouts to Aboriginals for different things.
That's our tax.
Through lawsuits, court cases,
Yeah.
settlements, and the parliamentary budget officer states that there's up to 73 billion more in liabilities that the federal government's, no, not the federal government, the taxpayers are going to owe Aboriginals. What, for being Aboriginal?
It's an $11 billion a year industry, okay? Like, it's all happening.
No, it's not 11 anymore.
It
It was 11 when we started.
Not realizing what's happening in all of the courthouses all across Canada. This is happening every single day. It's an absolute industry. It's called the Indian industry. People wrote books on it.
So if you look at those two numbers, that's $127 billion that taxpayers are going to have to cough up. Okay, simply in transfers to Aboriginals.
And that's on top of the land that they get and all the mineral rights and this.
Well-
like when the Niska chief, who isn't around anymore, who said we own it all. We own the land, we own the trees, we own the air you breathe. That's when I got up and started end race-based law. When they said we own the air you breathe, I said, wow, that is way past Hitler. Did Hitler even say that?
There is an ongoing treaty process in BC, and it should be noted that every time a new treaty is negotiated, land rights are given to that tribe. So Crown land that at one point belonged to the people of British Columbia now belongs to
One race.
an Aboriginal tribe.
Well, and they're fighting each other over who it belongs to.
And even
like they did in the past.
Even the original Niska Agreement, which was the first big modern treaty of its kind, now there's another tribe in court saying that treaty's invalid
in court on our taxpayer dollar.
because some of that land was their traditional territory.
Right.
Well, they didn't have maps. They didn't have drawn designated boundaries, so virtually every land claim settlement is going to end up in court. In British Columbia, Aboriginal tribes already claim 115% of British Columbia. So not 100%, 150, which shows in the original claims
They're
there's
overlapping.
already overlap of 15%.
Yeah.
And it's just beginning.
They're fighting each other on who's the land. Just like they did in the past.
Not
just
o-
like they did in the past.
Not only is this expensive and a waste of our time and resources,
Yeah.
but it's making things worse. There was far less racial division between Aboriginals and
Never
Canadians
grew up with it like this.
30 years ago
Yeah.
than now. Every step we've taken to supposedly
Yeah.
correcting the correction of the problem is simply to eliminate
And
it
they're
once
not
and
getting
for
better.
all.
The same globalists who are using them for these race law things are pumping OxyContin and fentanyl and cocaine and everything into their reserves and killing them. Like the activists are stupid. They're not helping them. The people are not they're not getting better. Their lives are not getting better, no matter how much money gets pumped into it. Not getting better at all. Not even a little bit.
One has to wonder how much is stashed in foreign bank accounts.
A lot of these chiefs are corrupt. They're corrupt.
Certainly if you read like the Facebook pages where Aboriginals write in to talk about their reserve, the claims of fraud from their leadership,
Unbelievable.
they go on and
Unbelievable.
on
And you
on.
gotta know that the chiefs can just kick somebody off out of a house and off the reserve. Like, it's just the most awful system. It's the most archaic, awful. It's like the chief is the king, and only his family get the best of everything, and everybody fights, and you can literally be homeless.
There are ruling families on most reserves.
Because somebody doesn't like you, they're mad at you, they got drunk and they hate you now.
And so even when you have elections, you still have the ruling family in control. And the ruling family, it's because there's more of them than everybody else, and because they've had control of the
And the
money.
chiefs get all the money from the government, and then they're supposed to dole it out, and no one monitors what happens on those reserves because no one's even allowed on them, and not even the RCMP or the police or anybody. They're their own nations now.
Okay, so we'll be doing podcasts specifically focusing on the dysfunction in reserves. We've done lots of posts on this issue, so if you check that out on the websites, that we've gone through each of these points showing how offensive and regressive. Let's start using the term regressive. There are people calling everything they do progressive, like our federal government is guilty of that.
Yeah,
Everything
that's a
they
good
do
term,
is
Jer.
progressive.
Yeah.
Now, when you call something you're
like
doing progressive without us having to have a chance
progress.
to see if
The
it's actually progress,
What's the root word
Okay.
of progressive?
then you are being disingenuous. You are just trying to sell the idea by projecting that it's positive. But in fact, with these racial moves we've seen in Canada, they're regressive. And people who promote them are regressives with a capital R. That term we need to start
Racists.
using. Okay, not when they say progressive, we counter with regressive. Because did Martin Luther King not exist? Hello, did the Prime Minister never hear of him? Did the Prime Minister...
Did we not end slavery?
Did he never read his own father's writings on the folly of negotiating new treaties with Aboriginals? He didn't even study his own father's politics, never mind anybody else.
And Jared, don't forget, the United Nations took over, encouraged the natives to fight for taking over their own education system, which only meant that they were taught white privilege, and which ended up being white hatred and native history of oppression, which really in the end flips to be native supremacy. And all the reasons why you can just objectify and dehumanize whites and kill them. And you know, the whites, the natives in Manitoba have bumper stickers that say, "Get to work, whitey, I need a new truck." They make jokes about it. "Get to work, I need a new truck."
Well, and that's just a perfect example of how things have gotten worse rather than better, okay?
Yeah.
And so we have to turn this ship around. It's crucial. that
And
we do.
race-based law!
And so rather than get into more specifics today, this is just an introduction
Yeah.
to you to direct you where to go
It's bad. It's
for
really
more.
bad here. Really bad.
We are constantly doing posts. There's for instance, the news story, the Aboriginal industry news story of the month is about this unfortunate mayor up in Quesnel, BC, whose wife got a copy of a new book that's out called Grave Error, which looks at the fraud of the mass graves at residential schools. Produces research to show why and how that's not the case. His wife got a copy, showed him a copy, and since then all hell has broken loose. The council is asking for the mayor to resign because he won't resign. They've taken away his travel budget.
And they're using the blacks in the United States the same way they're using the natives here.
So-
it's all related.
So anyway, that post is up today
Yeah.
on .com.
They're doing that to everybody.
For those of you who want to know more about that story and what's
You
actually
can't know real history.
going on up in Quesnel, it's a fascinating example of what's being imposed on us by fanatics. Okay, these people are fanatics. They are unthinking fanatics, which makes it worse.
Well, like that CBC story you told me you listened to the other day with that idiot activist girl who didn't hold a candle to Frances Widdowson. In that interview, Jerry was just like, "Oh my God, these people are so dumb. They don't even know how dumb they are."
Yeah, I should probably do a post just on that
Yeah.
interview.
Yeah, it's really bad.
It was the most amateurish. It was a young CBC female reporter
Well, I mean,
interviewing
the globalists know if someone's dumb enough.
Frances Widdowson.
Yeah, that's what I said.
And so you guys can also look that up if you like. We will be doing a post about it though as well. So in conclusion, we just hope that we're able to inspire you people to at least investigate what we're talking about, okay? We're not racist. We're not white privileged people. Matter of fact,
I don't even like saying that. Please don't say that on anything to do with me. Don't attach, "I'm not racist" to my company and race-based law, because I don't even say that. I've never said that ever in my life. because that's what they want. Those are the positions they put us into. Fuck that. Like you shouldn't even have to qualify that. These are racist race laws. They're racist. They should have to defend themselves. I'm not defending myself.
Okay.
So Jerry's the researcher. We'll wrap this up now, and I'm the ass kicker. And I don't take any prisoners. Like, that's it. The whole thing is bullshit. And these chiefs are racist thugs. They're bullies. God, you got to hear them talk. It's the most racist crap I've ever heard in my whole life. It's really racist. You should hear the natives talk to us. It is truly, truly violent, vile, and it's all sexual. Remember when we were being attacked? Like, they're all like, there's a lot of
pretty obscene.
A lot of incest on those reserves, and alcoholism and fetal alcohol syndrome, and those young children, 13 years old, talking about sexual things. It was truly the most sexually abusive stuff I've ever heard in my life. I didn't even know people could talk like that, or brains could be like that. And in the beginning, I kept asking, what's going on? Like, why are these people so into this sexual abuse stuff? Like, what is that? It was a cultural thing. It was coming from across the country.
And the sad irony in all of this is we're honestly trying to help.
Yeah. They're in trouble.
We're honestly trying to help.
They're in trouble. That's what we saw. Like, we were mortified. We were looking at it going, what is this? Like, what is this incredible sexual abuse? And then that's when we found out more about the incest problem. Because we were naive to all this. We had to learn too.
Which, by the way, last month we did a post on Treaty 3 territory, which is Northern Ontario. APTN, which is the Aboriginal People's Television Network, they did the investigations that showed sexual abuse was rampant throughout Treaty 3 territory,
really and truly,
on the reserves.
These
this
children,
isn't us talking, okay?
Yeah.
And you'll find that in the posts,
the
posts we do, we use APTN, we use Aboriginal.
They do better investigative journalism.
We don't just use the normal sources you'd expect, but we also have used the CBC. Like, we're just getting the nuts and bolts of these stories from wherever we can find. Even the CBC, though, has some actual information in what may be an editorial disguised as a news story.
It's an epidemic.
And so we use the information they provide in that story and then try to elaborate on it and try to find other sources. We also use links to government documents in the posts. You'll find
Jerry's a phenomenal researcher.
You'll find links to historical documents, etc.
He's
right?
amazing.
We try as much as possible to not have this be editorializing all the time.
I editorialize.
If you look at the posts, you will find the red, which is us talking, to be 5% of the total post.
It's usually him talking.
Okay? I let the stories talk and interject when I think they're editorializing or are misleading us.
Like, for example,
fashion.
when they capitalize black for black people, they capitalize the B and they won't capitalize white, and they've all been told to do that in all news stories. You can't find a capitalized white people. They don't capitalize.
Yeah, even the National Post, which resisted for a while, CBC, Globe and Mail, Global, they've all been doing this now for a while. If you look in the stories, when they refer to white people, it's small w white, and every time they reference black or indigenous people, it's capital B and capital I. Now, how can people actually engage in this type of racist journal? This is racism. This is real subtle racism because most people haven't even noticed.
But
right?
also
but it subconsciously affects.
Very conspired racism.
This is
blatant racism.
It's brilliant in a devious way.
Yeah.
And the fact that all of our mainstream media have gone along with this without even an editorial about how offensive this would be is appalling.
Well, signing off, there are two things I'd like to say, and that is thank you for acknowledging the kids, honestly, because why do 12-year-old kids commit suicide? And they do in the Aboriginal communities on the reserves to enormously alarming numbers. And that's what Jerry was referring to. Like, they commit suicide at 12, 13 years old. Why? It's just a horrible life. Why? They're being raped. They're being, grandfathers are wandering in drunk and molesting them. That's what's going on.
We've had posts on this subject too.
Yeah, it's real. It's real. If you care about them, honestly, if you care about them, you will not play into any of these race laws and this race game. You won't. Like, if you respect them, give them more credit than to be such weak victims that they can't be with all of us equally in this life.
Good point.
And also, I want to say, one of my main things I used to say to them, they force us into this conversation of white and black and all that. Although I still love your beige power thing, it's my favorite thing. But I used to say to the natives, what is white? Is it Mesopotamian? Is it Italian? Is it Turkish? Is it French? Is it Swedish? Is it Ukrainian? What is white? Like, what is white? What does it mean? It's not an institution. It's not a school. There's no indoctrination. There's nothing that I can ever think of in the history of mankind. A book called What It Is to Be White. It's not a philosophy. It's not a religion. It's not a school of thought in any way, shape, or form. Like, what is white?
Yeah, the irony there is the government's insisting on science, right?
Right.
You notice with the climate
Yeah.
change thing, it says science. Science debunked racial categories decades ago and said there is no basis. There is no basis in science for racial categories. Now that should have been, that's the 1960s.
That's cool.
And that's why the 1960s had the love all together, all one, no more races,
they
etc.,
smashed,
right?
which they smashed.
Because there was a scientific foundation to it too. Well, that hasn't gone away.
And last but not least, how come Indigenous is only for people with darker skin? Like, there's no regard for Indigenous Europeans. And I end with that. What happened to Indigenous Europeans' rights? Like, it's just all a word game. It's a narrative game, and we have to win the narrative game. Jerry is great at the research. He proves everything, and I'm great at playing the narrative game. Well, like, Indigenous Europeans, that's who they are trying to wipe out, and that's what they're talking about. And they're different cultures, they're different languages, different foods, different borders, different histories, although they, wound up in some of the same wars, all created by the same people who are doing this to us now.
This is about culture, not race,
Mm-hmm.
and race-based law.
Yeah, and race-based law. We have too many people in Canada. There's from all around the world. I love Canada for that. We just do it so well, don't we, Jerry? We all, like, everybody from around the world is here. Everybody. And we just make it work.
So thanks for your time today.
Yeah, thank you. Honestly, thank you
And
for your
we'll
time.
be doing this on a regular basis.
Yep.
And
yep.
we hope to see you and speak with you on live broadcasts in the
Yeah, we
future.
want to do live chats, and we're going to keep it in and around this time. We're not going to go past 40 minutes.
Okay.
That's our goal.
That's the producer talking.
And there are lots of subjects to talk about and so many stories, and we really want, especially Canadians, but this actually applies to Europe. They're doing this all around the world, right? Dividing us racially. So really the philosophy of all of it is being applied in every country, and it's just that this is about what's happening right now with Canadian Constitution and how they brilliantly took over behind everyone's backs and inserted these race laws that were ambiguous that give one race inherent rights. That's the term. Inherent rights. And then there's the Indigenous people's rights from the United Nations. UNDRIP, which we're going to crush. And race-based
Which we've
law.
also done several posts on.
Yeah, and race-based law. Thank you for your time.